what it was for me is when I'd feel this moment of anxiety. And I remember in 2014, I was in Shanghai, China with my daughter. And I woke up one morning and I was like, oh gosh, this company that I'd founded that became a unicorn, like very quickly, within 2 years, it was on a run rate of $200 million in sales.
What was the company?
The company was called Alphion. It's now the second largest healthcare lender in the United States.
Wow. Wow.
And so I remember thinking, though, I needed to raise money at that time. And I was like, we're going to take the company public and I have to do a Series A and a Series B and all the other stuff.
Wait, you got to be a unicorn company before you even raised a Series A or B?
Yeah. Well, actually, the Series A, I knew I was going into it. We did a very large seed round. And the seed round was about $250 million.
Oh my God.
Yeah,
oh my God.
Rounds, that's pretty significant. And then we did our Series A was 700 million pre-money. And our Series B was 1.1 billion. And
isn't a unicorn $1 billion company?
$1 billion, yeah. But the Series A and the Series B happened within, only less than a year of each other. So it was all around the same time. And I knew it was coming up and we were going to take the company public and I needed to get, kind of like a Series A and Series B done, even though we didn't really need the capital. We needed the validation so that we could get to the public market. So then ultimately we didn't get to go to the public market because the market basically collapsed during 2016. There were no IPOs done. And so I went through like a really difficult time as a result of that, but that's a whole other part of the story. But what I was doing when I was in Shanghai is I was knowing that I was facing this thing and I didn't like the idea of having to go get venture capital money just to get the validation, right, on valuation. The company was growing leaps and bounds, very successful. We went from 0 to 1,000 employees in 18 months. Like it was crazy all over the world. And what happened was I woke up and I said to my daughter, I'm like, sweetheart, we're going to go to the Bulgari store, and we're going to buy a watch. And she's like, why are we going to buy a watch? And I said, she's like 18 years old at the time. And I said, well, because I have to collapse the wave function. And she's like, what the heck does that mean, Dad? And I said, well, what it is whenever I feel this anxiety and I have this big challenge coming up, most people would sort of like go for the idea of if I achieve something, I'm going to give myself the reward.
Right.
And so I decided to put the cart in front of the horse and give myself the reward because I understood that embodying and being the thing I wanted to achieve was tantamount to actually achieving it. Right. So I would buy watches because how many times do you look at your watch a day? That was the only reason why I would do it. And I would buy this really expensive watch that I'd been kind of like aspiring to have and everything when I was still stuck in my material world type of thing. And I would buy this watch. So I bought this really nice watch. And it was a reward for having overcome in the future the thing I hadn't achieved yet.
Damn.
And it was a burn the ships mentality. You've heard this story about, Cortez going to Mexico with terrible conquistador type activity. But what he did that was kind of crazy genius. I'm not putting any morals behind what he actually did to take over the nation or take over the land from the indigenous peoples. But what he did that was kind of crazy was he had 300 men and I think it was 6 ships. And they're in this bay and they all went to kind of go to the bathroom and they come back out onto the beach and they look and they see all their ships on fire. And they're like, how'd all our ships get on fire? And Cortez looks at him and says, well, there won't be any other ships coming from Spain for another year. There's 300 of us and there's 3 million of them. And we have to survive this. I burned the ships. There's no going back.
Oh God. He forced the situation.
He forced the situation. He's like, we're here to conquer and to win. And to a certain extent, that was probably the stage of my life when I was like very much in that material mode of, winning and succeeding and all of that. And I thought, okay, I'll buy a watch. I'll collapse the wave function. Every time I look at my watch, I'm going to remember the thing that I've already achieved as if it had already happened. Yeah. And I found it was very successful. And I could do that. I could collapse a wave function. But that was the earlier stage. And I didn't really, that's the time that I still believed that I could make things happen in the world. And now I realized, having gone through my own spiritual path is that, yes, that was sort of like me playing with myself in what's called Leela. And Leela is this notion of Maya or samsara,
Mm-hmm.
which is you are playing with yourself to make you believe in a way that it was you all along that came up with this. And, there wasn't a such thing in my world as destiny. I believed in free will. It was all about free will. You make it happen. There are three types of people. I used to say this all the time. Three types of people in the world. People that some people make things happen. Some people watch things happen, and other people wonder what the hell just happened. And I would definitely be in the mindset of I'm a make it happen kind of person, probably like yourself, I would bet.
Yeah, I was gonna say I agree with that. Yeah.
And so I really discounted any optionality or any notion that there could be a destiny involved. And that maybe what I called destiny, I later learned, might actually just be the free will of the higher self.
Is this operating separately from us? Well, not separately. It's working through us, but it is the first stop. What is that part, that observer? You talked about the observer at first, and I have kind of been in those spaces before where I've been able to be the observer, and in fact more and more in my life, just walking through life, becoming more of the observer of things instead of feeling things so personally. It's just things happening. But what is it that you're explaining then with this observer, with this sort of higher self?
I just got done having a discussion with Aubrey Marcus, and I'm in Austin right now, and I was just with Aubrey, and we're talking about Hermeticism. And the first principle of the 7 principles of Hermeticism. There you go.
I read it. I grabbed it because I was like, I had heard that you about Hermeticism, listening to stuff before I talked to you. And I was like, I read this book. It's fantastic.
It's a vibe. It's definitely a vibe. And actually, that's the third law, or the third principle of Hermeticism, is vibration, law of vibration. But the very first principle, and each of these principles tie to the chakras, right? We're born, the root is born into this world where we're conditioned to believe. That's like the construct of this world is conditioned to make you believe in a way that everything is about material. It's solid. You can count on this thing, right? You're born into this world of separation, and you have this separation, and then fear creeps in, and all the other aspects that then we decide what are the things that bring us shame, and those are the things I don't want to be. And the things that don't bring us shame are the things that I want to ascribe to. I want to show the world that I am that thing. And then as we get older, we start to want to align more and more with that perfection and not see the other aspects of ourselves that we repress entirely.
Yeah.
The shadow self.
Yep.
The negative aspects of ourselves.
Yeah.
And so, this whole idea of mentalism is the first principle of Hermeticism, is to basically break down this conditioned idea that, by the way, I believe we all subjected ourselves to. Think of ourselves as more in a construct of matrix of mind where you're in an avatar, and this avatar body, right? Imagine that let's say you and I decided to make a video game, and the video game was here, and it was intended to teach human awareness and consciousness, how to expand. So you'd probably come up with some rules, right? And there would be like some ground rules.
Yeah.
Some principles that are going to always be lasting, constants, if you will, right? Across that game environment.
Yep.
We want people to learn through experience, not by didactic learning. We want people to have the experience of what it's like. And the more real you make it, the more powerful the learnings can be.
Yeah.
So you put yourself into a situation where you don't remember any of it.
Oh, it's the hot stove. I mean, you can say don't touch the hot stove, but sometimes you got to touch the hot stove.
That's right. And you don't remember that you actually chose all of this. That's part of the game. And the whole game is intended for you to refine yourself and remember who you are. And so as you go through this game, you're learning all these aspects of yourself. You start taking on, I have to learn how to transcend this notion of duality. And it's not always about black and white. Here's what's right and what's wrong. Maybe the objective truth is that it's the sum of all possible perspectives. And maybe I can start learning to see outside of the perspectives that I had been conditioned into. And maybe those conditionings are more predestined in the context of when I was born and the time I was born into, and astrology and numerology and all the other stuff. And what you're describing now is a game that's more like a matrix of mind.